hoping that those of you who are watching are starting this week off like with some happiness. Granted, if you're coming to this segment, you're probably like, there's not a lot of happiness. But I do hope that I hope this segment can be helpful to you if you need it. So today we're talking about how to have an amicable parting when you are separating from your partner, going through a divorce, all the things. My hope is that you'll both watch this if possible, because I'm going to kind of talk to both of you at the same time, and then just a little bit stuff from a mom that's walked it, things that I look back and while I'm a no regrets kind of person, there are things that I wish I could have done differently, and going back and looking at those things. So yeah, I want to get started on that. I do want to say that this segment is brought to you by a Thinking, Feeling, Willing program. So if you don't know what that is a Waldorf homeschool training, support, and curriculum program that brings all the things right to you. So if you want more information at that, you can check out our link tree if you're on Instagram, or you can grab us at thinkingfeelingwilling.com. So let's get started. Okay, so this is really for people who are sure that this is the road you're taking. This is not if you are like, yeah, we're really struggling in our partnership, or we're really struggling in our marriage, I'm not sure. This is if you are sure. If you are sure. If not, save this and come back when you are sure, because it will be in our podcast. So in our podcast downloads and on our YouTube downloads. So if you're not sure, if you're still in the place where this can be saved, which it is my prayer that it can be, because I'm not pro-divorce at all. What I am pro is feeling good about your life, excuse me, feeling good about your partnering, and being parents that show up together. And I know that that's not everybody's reality. And I know there's a lot of women that sort of live in fear of, oh no, if I do this, then this will happen. And so I don't want it to be a fearful thing. So that's really why we're having this chat today. But if you're somebody who you think that, like, you're not ready to go see a lawyer right now, then you're not ready for this video. If you're ready to go see a lawyer and like you got an appointment in the next 2 weeks and you're like, or your partner's filed for divorce, you're ready to file for divorce and you are just done, then this video is for you. Otherwise, put it away until later and really, really work on you. If you're listening, you're like, oh wait, that's not me yet, but I feel like we're heading that way, then I want you, these are my assignments for you. Really work on you. Work on how you're showing up. Ask yourself every day, how am I just reacting, or is my partner really showing up in such a bad way that we just can't do this? If neither one of you are willing to sort of fix things or move forward, then maybe you are ready for this. Like if you're in a place where you're just like, I'm done, then you're here. But if you're really in a spot where you can work on it, and let me tell you, because people have said to me before, Melissa, you sound so pro-divorce. I am not pro-divorce. Do you know that I worked on my marriage for 3 years before I was ready to walk away from it? 3 years. We went to counseling. We went to counseling in 2 different states. Like, we went to counseling in one state, and then we moved to another state, and we needed counseling again, and I went to counseling there with him, and we went to a lot of, like, 2 or 3 different counselors, because what will happen sometimes, one partner will just decide that whatever counselor is just not, they just don't like them, and they're just out to get them. And so if you're in that spot, then you have to step back, and if you're the one that's continually saying, hey, this counselor doesn't like me, you have to step back and say, okay, wait a minute. Maybe I'm not showing up the way I should be. Because if each counselor consistently doesn't like you, then maybe it's you. Just saying. Maybe you're the one who's having the struggle. It's not the counselor. So, but I worked for 3 years trying to save my marriage. And it was, I knew it was done. One morning I was on the phone with my mom. Hi, Mom, if you're listening. Maybe she remembers this. I remember being on the phone with her, and it was early in the morning, and I remember exactly where I was in my house, where I lived, and I remember the sun was coming through the window, and I was on the phone, and she said, "Do you love your husband?" And I paused. And I said, well, I love him. She said, but are you in love with him? And I said, I don't think I love him the way a wife is supposed to love a husband. She said, then I think you're done. And so that was after 3 years of really trying. So if you are in that space and you have really tried, because see, I'm kind of hard-headed as a choleric. I don't want anybody to come back to me and go, you didn't try enough, because hell yes, I did. I tried really hard. So I want you, if you're thinking about going down this road, I want you to ask yourself, I want you to be able to look your children in the eye in the future and say, this is everything that I did to try. I tried. Because if you can't look your children in the face and without like feeling guilty that you didn't try hard enough, then you're going to struggle. But you know, and I'm not saying like, oh my gosh, you're in an abusive situation, you should try. No. That's not what I'm saying. I am saying give it the try that it needs. Give that other person the opportunity to go, hey, wait a minute, my life is falling apart. I'm going to try to show up better. Give the other person that opportunity. If not, you will struggle being able to say, to look your children in the eyes. And I never wanted to be able to struggle with that. And I have to say, my 3 adult children from that marriage, I don't struggle. They all know. Some of them are old enough to sort of understand some of what was going on, and the other 2 weren't. But they all know. They all know that I tried, and then they watched the fallout for years after. And it's that fallout that I really want to address today. So you are on your way to a lawyer, or you're going to be served, or you're going to serve your partner with papers. This is what I want you to keep in mind. If you don't already have one, I want you to print out or get a picture of your children and keep it in your purse or in your pocket at all times. Because really and truly, at the end of the day, excuse me, as much as you're trying to part your lives, which if you've been together for any significant amount of time, like longer than 2 or 3 years, like pulling yourselves apart is going to be hard. But you don't want to pull your children apart. You want to always be the parent, both parents. It would be so lovely if both parents could say this. Both parents need to always be the ones to say, I'm here for the children. Excuse me, guys. I have this tickle in my throat today. You want to be there for the children. You don't want to be the person that's like poking at the other person. Don't poke at the other person. That is not your job. The other person is getting poked at enough. Just worry about your children. I wish I had water down here. Don't be the person that is, because that was one thing that I always thought. It seems like he just wants to attack me. He doesn't give a rat's fanny about the children and what they're going through. And that was very apparent, and that was why things ended up the way they did. But I have to tell you, if you can all honestly say at every step, I'm here for the kids, and truly what is best for the kids. Now that doesn't mean that that you always think that he's not going to show up like he should. You have to give him the opportunity to. So, you really should ask yourself, is he or she, if you're a man listening, for sure, a good mom or dad? Are they a good person in their soul? Are they just struggling with something right now, like midlife crisis or major depression or something that they need to work themselves out of? If they work themselves out of it, then when they come back, it'll be fine. Are they really just struggling with life? Or are they purposefully not showing up the way they need to because they're trying to hurt you? And that's the way it feels often, but you definitely still have to step back and you have to ask yourself, is that what's going on? Is that what's going on? Or is that my perception because I'm hurt and frustrated and angry at this person? Is that my perception? And so you want to really ask yourself those questions. Be an observer. Before you hand out judgment, be an observer. Try to always observe the situation rather than judge the situation. Because what's going to happen is even the most level-headed people get themselves a little bit crazy when they go through this process because it's not fun. It's going to be, and I will say, I've been through some hard stuff in my life. Had a stroke. I've been through 5 births. My divorce was the hardest thing I ever did. And I've been through some really hard stuff. And it was hard because even though it was my choice and I'm the person who filed, you lose your hopes and your dreams for just a little bit when you're going through it. And you question yourself and you ask yourself, how did I get here? How did I let myself be in this place? You lose yourself for just a little bit, but I'm here to tell you, you're going to get yourself back. I promise. You just got to walk through it. And it's going to be awful. It will be your dark night of the soul, and you will think, I'm never going to get through this. This is so awful and so horrible. How is it going to get, how am I going to resolve this? How am I going to get to the other side? What's going to happen to us? Because usually, more often than not, mom is thinking about her and children, and dad is thinking about dad. That is a stereotype that is sadly still very true. So really what would be more lovely is if mom and dad were both thinking about life with kids after marriage. If you're both thinking about, hey, I have to build a life for us, not I have to build an apartment that sometimes kids come to. In a beautiful, perfect situation, you could live close enough together, not hate one another, and kids could go back and forth, and you could do the 50-50% that a lot of courts are trying to do today. That would be beautiful. But that is not the reality 99% of the time. So I have been sort of a divorce doula for a lot of years. For probably at least 10, I have worked with families going through divorce. And every time I start a situation, I'm thinking, oh, maybe this one will be different. And, working with families, trying to get husband and wife on the good place, and at least so that they can part. Nope. Because everybody loses their head a little bit. So if you could remind yourself, hey, Melissa said I'm going to lose my head a little bit. And I'm going to try not to, because I don't want to lose my head. And darn it, those forks and those dishes don't matter. Take them. Take them. If that's really what you want, take them. That doesn't matter. What matters to me is my dignity and how my children see me at the end of the day, how I show up for them. Those should be the most important things. You should ask yourself every day, how do I want to show up? How do I want to go to bed tonight? How is this space that I know I have to walk through, because it's just walking through SHIT. It's bad. How do I get to the other side of it and still have my dignity? So you're going to have to make a plan. You're going to have to make a plan. And that plan, that plan might involve you having to look at, other schooling situations. If you're a homeschooler, I'm going to tell you what saved my bacon were a few things. One, I kept a blog. Get on Blogger. It's free. Set up a personal blog and set it to private. And the only people that have access to it are you and dad. Then every week what you do is you upload everybody's assignments. It's really easy. You get an app from your phone, upload pictures, put a little bit of text to it. This is what we did. Then you don't have to talk about school. If dad is super concerned, which it's really funny to me how generally dad is not concerned when they're married, but dad is often concerned then when they're not about what the kids are actually doing. And usually, I'm telling you, it's because he wants to poke at mom and her values. So dad, if you're listening, I want you to ask yourself, if it doesn't bother me now, it can't bother me after. Seriously. And that doesn't matter if it's homeschooling, natural living, vaccination, all those things that tend to come up when there's this parting and all of these values that are suddenly different, that we're not different, or that we're not so deeply different. So if they're an issue for you now, voice it now. Talk about it now. With that, I will also remind mom that you have no say, none. When you have parted and they go to dad's house, you cannot control the TV they watch. You cannot control the fact that he just wants to feed them hot dog buns. You cannot control it. You can be mad about it, or you can make your house a sanctuary of peace. And that's what we tried to do, is always make our house a sanctuary of peace. Doesn't mean I didn't get angry. Doesn't mean I didn't fight back. Doesn't mean I didn't write letters to my lawyer on a regular basis. But you have to make your house the sanctuary of peace. His neglect might seem completely neglectful and awful, but to the state laws, it's usually not. It's just very frustrating if you're the mom that doesn't want them eating hot dog buns as a meal, doesn't want them watching SpongeBob at 2 a.m. You'll have to work with what you can. And in fighting that is going to just cause issues between you and your kids. So just do the best you can. Instill your values when they're at your house. So then when they do leave, they do ask questions like, I remember one time, I took so much heat for this one. My middle child, she said to her other grandma, this is not what Christmas is all about. It is not all about all these presents. It's really about Jesus. Did you not know that? I just remember that. Do you remember that, dear?
Yeah, I do.
I said, you said that to her. She said, I did, because you taught us that Christmas was about Jesus. And that presents are great, but that's not all that Christmas is about. I remember thinking, oh, I'm so glad she listened. She took a lot of heat, and then I took a lot of heat for it. But I said, but isn't that what Christmas is about? You're confusing the kid. What do you believe Christmas is about? Tell her. If you say that you believe Christmas is about presents, tell her that that's what you believe it is. It's okay for your opinion to be different from mine. Don't compromise what you believe in your values in your home, but you also can't say a whole lot about what goes on over there. You just can't. You can make yourself crazy about it, or you can just breathe. One of the best things that we did, we got each child a stone that they carried in their pocket the whole time they were gone. And it was just like a remembrance stone. So they remembered, hey, that's mom and mom's house and the safety and the peace that we have at their house. We had to have a detox day every time when they came back. So what does a detox day look like? Detox day is usually like, I'm so glad you're home. I love you. We would come together for family prayer, and then we'd go to the park. We tried not to do any lessons on those days. I might do a read aloud on those days. And I'm telling you, those days were a lot because we had 50-50 custody for a long time. That was hard. That meant that twice a week we were doing detoxes, and it was a lot. And that changed. That changed after a while. So, that's the other thing I'm going to say is what you end up with the first rung out, like the first time the judge slaps the gavel down, that's not necessarily what you're going to have the whole time. We went back to court 3 times. In fact, Eric and I sort of laughed that the first 6 years of our marriage were all about litigation with somebody else. And that's not great, but it is what it is. And looking back on it now, I've been married for almost, we've been married for 14 years. And in sort of, oops, somebody's trying to call me. Nope, sorry, not talking to you. In sort of all of that, I can look back at it now and see how tight that bonded he and I together, and also how tight it bonded us with our kids. So I want you to, if you're on this path, I want you to not lose hope, but I also want you to not lose your mind. You have got to stay in a good place. You have got to be in a spot where you can be the level-headed person, because there are times that the other person is not going to be level-headed. It might be all the time. They might make crazy decisions like not let kids have their stuff, which is insane. It's insane. I never restricted what they took to his house. And when I did, it was like something very special. If you're going to take this, please be sure to bring it back, or something like that.
Yeah, bikes.
But he took their bikes away. And so you don't want to be that parent. Don't be the parent that makes irrational decisions because you think that means the child's going to come to you. Also, I'm telling you, don't buy a dog. That's crazy. Here's why it's crazy. Don't buy a dog to get your kids to want to come to your house. Get your kids to want to come to your house because you are a loving parent. You have fun together. You do great things together. And then if you've got that solid and you want to add a dog to that mix, great. But don't buy a dog to try to get kids to want to be with you. It always backfires. Have fun anyway. just enjoy your children. And when you're going through this process, every time you shoot off a message to your lawyer, ask yourself, how does this affect my children? Excuse me. How does it affect your children? How will you, when they're 20, will you be able to look at them and say, this decision that I made when you were 9, yeah, I still stand by it. You still stand by it. You want to be able to look at the long game. Oftentimes, when there's this firing back and forth of lawyers, nobody's looking at the long game. Nobody's looking at the children. Nobody's looking at what they're going to be going through later. So you need to be the person that says, I'm looking out for the children. You need to be the person that is to all of those appointments, that is Johnny on the spot. And please, for the love of all that is holy, get your kids in counseling. Doesn't matter if you're a really good coach, your kids need to be in counseling. Having a counselor for our kids was the best thing we ever did. And it was a court-appointed counselor the second time around. And she was amazing, absolutely amazing. She had a lot of background in domestic violence and understanding emotional abuse, and worked for the courts, and it was amazing. I know it's not always amazing. You've got to seek, hunt them down, ask other people for references, find out what who the court-appointed counselors are, because you will have to ask your lawyer, hey, I'd like to put the kids in counseling. Who does the court appoint? You want to go from there. Don't do it on your own. What will happen if you do it on your own, as we've been through this, is the courts will appoint somebody else. And it's okay. Your response should be, the reason why I put my kids in counseling is because they were really struggling and they really needed it. And the courts will say, great, but we're going to switch counselors, usually. So unless you already start with somebody who has a court-appointed counselor and they have a good relationship with the courts, then generally, maybe they won't make you change. They don't want anybody that's biased. So if they've heard from you at all, or they've been your personal counselor at all, they do not want to hear from you. They want to hear from the kids. And that should be your number one priority, is the kids. Now with that, you also want to be somebody, or you also want somebody who will listen to you and also listen to your ex. Because that person, and I wouldn't have that job for all the money in the world, the person who has to be the court-appointed counselor is supposed to listen to mom, supposed to listen to dad, but it's really there for the kids. So that person is taking in mom's information, dad's information, and then looking at how that's affecting the children. Often that's a guardian ad litem situation, and the guardian ad litem then makes a lot of decisions for the courts as far as where the kids should be and how long. Here's some other tips. Make sure you're feeding people on time. Make sure your house is clean. Clean up your house, make sure you know what they're eating, get your lessons in place. You want to be doing that months before you file. And that's why I said, do the blogger thing. Do the blogger thing. Just say to your partner, well, I want you to be abreast of what they're doing in school. Even if he says, they're going to go to public school, blah, 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 blah. Oh, that's fine. But even though it's not fine, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Goodness, we've been going for almost 30 minutes. But you want to have that piece in place where you can prove what they're doing every week, even if they're in kindergarten. Every week, drawing pictures, taking pictures of you guys going to the library, all those things. You pop them on that blog. And then here's what's great about Blogger. And I'm sure there are other blogs that do this too. This was just Blogger was my experience because it was free and easy. If you only have one other person that's invited to your blog, you can look in the analytics and you can see how many times that person has gone to the blog to look. So when you hear dad screaming, I want to know what they're doing in school, and you have provided it, but he or she has not gone to look at the information, that is evidence for the courts. So you print off, you do screenshot, has the date on there, has the number of activity, and you hand that to your lawyer. So if for a parent that is screaming, hey, I want to know what's going on with my kid's education, but they're not willing to look at the blog, the courts will take that into consideration. You can say, I have made this information available. And usually with that, what I would do is I would make available all the lesson blocks you're teaching that year. And these are the reasons why. You want it not to just cover your fanny, but you can say to your partner or your ex-partner, I would really like for you to be able to read this book of fables with Johnny when he comes to your house. This is his homework. So could you read this book of fables? And if he says no, then you can let the courts know that too. That's a refusal to help with schoolwork, because in the capacity of homeschooling, you are the teacher, and you're not doing anything that's like out of the ordinary, because you would read that book of fables with Johnny if Johnny were at home. So you want to be sure that you have your ducks all in a row, and that you have all of those pieces laid out. We had semi-annual meetings where we laid out for my ex-husband, this is what they're learning this year, here's their lesson books from last year, and this is what we've got going for next year. I think that lasted twice. Until he really just didn't care. And that's usually what happens, sadly. It's not what I want to happen for you, but sadly that is often what happens, is dad gets going with his own life and he's like, oh, that's just too hard to take care of. So she's got it, I'm just gonna let her take care of it. But anything that you find that is very important to you, that is very stressful to you, the idea of dad taking away, you need to make known, and you need to shop around for a lawyer that will hear you and listen to you. So then this, what I'm about to say, is kind of controversial. So I'm going to say it anyway, because you know me, no filter. My oldest has vaccine damage. And so consequently, none of the other ones were vaccinated. And he was fighting about that. And so we had a meeting with both lawyers, and we were in the conference room, and he started up about wanting that, and I looked him straight in the eye, and I said, I want you to hear me. If you feel like it's so important that you go and do that, you do it. But it will be on your head if there is another vaccine damage injury, and they will always know that it was you and not me that made that choice. So as long as you're okay with that, then you go right ahead and do it. And it really made him think. He didn't go through with it because he didn't want it to be on him, and he didn't want it to be, oh, wait a minute, she's going to tell them that it was my idea. Yep, I am. I'm not owning that one. You do want to be careful with that, because there was a time when I was ordered by a judge to be not so truthful to my children. Now I'm not telling them things that are outside of their developmental stage, but I am somebody who doesn't generally lie. I don't like to lie, like at all. And so I was ordered by a judge once to not tell the full truth. And I said, you know how hard that is? He said, well, would you like me to put you in jail? Would it be hard then? I said, oh, wait a minute, never mind. I can hold my tongue. And it really was not about me lying. I just had to not speak about some things. I know it's a really heavy topic. I'm trying to bring a little levity to it, but I definitely want you to not lose your head. Don't lose your head. Definitely walk forward. Definitely be in a place where you are more empowered than you think you are. Research your state's laws about homeschooling. You know, when I was sitting, and it's different now. This was like years ago. This was more than 10 years ago. So, but when I was sitting in the courtroom, the judge said, that's our law? Really? I said, yeah, because I quoted it. I knew it. I knew where it was in the statute. I knew exactly what it was said in the educational code, and I read it out in open court so that then the court reporter can type it into her notes. See, you want to be thinking about things like that. You want to make sure that whatever your state law is, that you know it, your lawyer knows it backwards and forwards, and that then the judge knows it. So you want to be that poke thorn in their side. It's like, oh, right, fine, tell me the law. You want to be that person, because when you've got it in a situation where it has been read in open court, they have to listen to you. And so, yeah, of course, it can always do things that make it so that what you said doesn't matter. But in general, so we also did something else. We were, at the time, I was doing the blogger thing. That was not going very well for him because he was never looking at it. But then I also was part of a charter school for a while. I was part of a charter school because I wanted, like, he was like, they need to be in public school. Oh, they are in public school. we wanted to be able to say that. And we didn't stick with the charter for very long. We were with them for about a year, and then we were able to walk away from them. One thing that I kept going after that was I did agree to test for a few years. Again, it didn't last for very long. I tested twice a year, and it was my own because he wasn't willing to pay for the tests. So if your partner is willing to pay for the tests, order those tests online that can be administered at home, or go to a testing center, prep your kids for it. It's not a lot of fun, but it can absolutely be done. So we did the test for a couple of years, and then again, it was more of like, I don't care what those results are. So you want to have your ducks in a row. If I had not been as vigilant as I was, we would not have gotten through, and my kids would not have gotten the opportunities that they did. So I'm not saying that my kids came out unscathed. They did not. They did not. And they struggle sometimes, for sure. And there are struggles that they're going to carry with them their whole life. But those struggles generally are not between me and them. It's between them and their dad. So those struggles are not ones that I manufactured. I absolutely did my darndest to make sure that they were at the front of all of my thoughts. And how is this affecting them for the long game? This isn't just for today. I need to know how this is affecting them for the long game. So when you can be in that place, it is so much better. And you can sleep at night because you know you're doing the best you can, even if it doesn't work out for you. Because I will tell you, I know many moms that it doesn't work out for them. I know moms that have had to send their kids to school and go back to work and get a job. I get that. It is not any fun. I've worked with those moms, and we work darn hard to get it to go the other way. If that's your reality, though, if that's what it comes down to at the end of the day, you know what, Mom? You still get to choose. You get to choose how happy you are when you wake up every day. You get to choose what experiences you bring to your children when they come home from school. You get to choose how involved you are in their schooling. You get to choose, you get to be that room mom every time. If you have to, that becomes your reality and you have to send them. You still get to choose. You have a lot more choices than you think you do. Just because some are taken away from you doesn't mean all are taken away from you. So you want to be in that space. And Dad, again, I want to talk to you and just say, don't lose your head. Be there for your kids. If you are doing something that is causing a rift between you and your ex-partner, ask yourself, am I doing it to make my ex-partner mad? Or am I doing this because I think it's good for my kids? If it's good for your kids, right on, I'm there for you. If it's just to piss your partner off, stop it. Doesn't matter. Divide all your assets up and walk your separate ways, because here's the thing. There is life after divorce, like amazing life after divorce. If you had said it to me before I got my divorce, I would think you were lying. If you had said to me, within 3 years, you're going to be married to this amazing human being and you're going to be pregnant with another child and your family and your life is going to be whole again, I would have said, nah. But it's amazing what happens when you can walk through it. So as I close, I also want to say one last thing, because I don't want you to be jaded. Often I see people become very jaded after divorce. Listen, the entire male population or female population didn't let you down. Just one person. So I want you to write your perfect partner list. Write it as you're going through this divorce process. Even though you're going to argue with me and say, I don't want another partner, I just want to be single forever. Listen, I was there. Write it. Put it away. Don't look at it again. Just write it down and put it away. Because this is what happened. I did the same thing. Had somebody get in my face when I was going through my divorce, and she said, you got to write a list. And I was like, I don't want to write the list. The last thing I want to think about is sex and men. Like, seriously, that's the last thing I want to think about. She's like, no, you got to write your list. So I wrote the list. Had like 28 or something things on it. I wrote it and I put it away. Eric and I were moving into our first house together, it fell out of this book I had it stuffed in a Bible, and it fell out of this Bible that I had. And I was like, what's this list? And I opened it and I was like, oh, my list. And I read it, and all but 2 things. There were like 28 things on the list. All but 2 things were embodied in the man that I'm with, that I've been with for 14 years, that I've been with now longer than I was with my ex-husband. So, and those two things, one was that he wasn't a vegetarian, which doesn't matter to me now. And I don't remember what the other thing was. It was like that, not important. So I want to just encourage you, make your list. I think it's a very important part of your healing process to realize that not every man or woman out there embodies the same things that your ex did. You can get over that. You can move on. And you are worthy of having somebody love you the way they're supposed to, like deeply from the heart. You are worthy of that. And I remember had this rebound relationship after I got divorced. And I had this realization that this man was never going to marry me. It wasn't Eric, it was this other guy. He was never going to marry me. And I remember I was walking through the store one day, and it was like the spirit was right here and whispered into my ear, Melissa, you are worthy of being married to somebody who loves you deeply. And it stopped me cold because I knew that the little rebound relationship that I was in was not it. It was not what I wanted. It was not what was going to bring me long-term happiness. Broke that off. Met Eric not too long after that. So take a deep breath. You're worthy of more than what you have right now. That's why you're on this path to begin with. You just got to stick it through. See it to the end. Keep your children at the forefront of your mind. Keep that picture of them in your pocket or your purse or on your desk or wherever. Look at them constantly. Every night when they get ready to go to bed, sit with them. Tell them how much you love them. Watch them sleep and just think about their happiness and their long term. And yeah, they're going to hurt for a while. And they might hurt for a long time. Those are scars that, especially if your partner does something to them, those are scars that will stick with them through adulthood. But you are the parent that is there for them. You are the parent that is going to be their rock. So you've got to show up and you've got to walk forward for them. Okay, that was really heavy. It's awesome. So I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Blessings to you, and I'll see you later.